What's up, YouTube? It's Al from backyardnursery.org, and I want to share with you step by step this experiment that I did on learning how to root fig cuttings. So I had done searches all online, all over YouTube to try to figure out which was the best method. And I've tried out a bunch of different methods. And so this is one of a series of videos where I'm going to share the methodology I used to root some fig cuttings. All right, so starting out, I have vermiculite that is in a 1-gallon freezer bag. This is the off-brand Walmart brand. But the vermiculite is new from the bag, but then it's pre-moistened with some tap water. And so the trick with pre-moistening is that you want to make sure that it's damp and wet. And when you squeeze it, it should feel kind of almost spongy, but you shouldn't see water coming out. And so that's kind of how you know that it is damp and appropriately damp and not too wet. So I had 7 cuttings in total that I want to show you here. And I started this bag with 7 cuttings. I have LSU purple cuttings. And I have Celeste. Wait for it, wait for it, wait for it. Celeste. So the method is pretty easy to do. It's actually slightly harder if you're trying with one hand while holding a camera. But ultimately, I just want to put the cuttings into the bag, and I want to completely cover the cuttings with the vermiculite. Not just the bottoms where the roots would grow, but the entire thing. And so what I'm going to do is use my hands here to sort of massage them down and shift the vermiculite around so that it completely covers. Takes a couple of tries here to do it with one hand, and ew, look at that gross hand. But we have success at this point. So there we go. The next step is to just label the bag, because even though it's a short period of time here, I have a terrible memory, and I want to make sure that I remember what's in this bag. And I never won any penmanship competitions. I have some pretty terrible handwriting, but there we go. LSU purple and Celeste, that's what's in there. After labeling, what I did was I took the bag and I put it into a drawer in my office. And right now you're not going to see a heating mat in there, but I did put a heating mat in about 2 days later. So I wasn't sure exactly what to expect when I first started this experiment, but after a very short period of time, I actually found that the cuttings were sprouting. You can see a green leaf node or some sort of a sprout hanging out in the top left of that bag. And again, that's one of the secondary bags that I had used. But that gave me a whole lot of confidence that this methodology was going to work. And so I expanded the operation as well. And I used a bunch of different types of figs. I have an LDA on the right, a violet on the left, and a really thick violet de Bordeaux on the left. I also did this with a bunch of other figs as well. So now let's check out some results. So this is one of the 2 bags after about 19 days, or I should say after exactly 19 days. And I'm just going to kind of tilt it upside down now so that the vermiculite travels away. And by the way, you should probably try to not disturb them like I disturbed them. I'm sure that I set back root development on some, but look at that. Look at that. That's the first root right there. Look at that in slow motion. Ka-chow. Here's a separate close-up of a different part of the bag. And you can see those, like it's really tough because there's so much vermiculite there, but a bunch of those little white nodules are the starters of roots. And you can even see some more green growth over there where there's a green bud. But by this point, not all of the figs had long, extensive roots, but a bunch of them started to have the very beginnings of roots. So very promising, and again, in less than 3 weeks. So at that point, I put the figs back into the closet. But take a look at this about several days later. This is right around almost exactly 28 days. And now this is a Ronde de Bordeaux. I didn't show you me putting those in the bag, but trust me, I did it right around the same time. And look at those gigantic roots. You can also get a sense for it, right? So massive roots growing out all directions off the bottom. And then you can also see like the pale green growth of those shoots. We're just going to kind of go speed round here. Here's another one. Look at those roots, not quite as well developed. Look at it. I know these roots like the back of my hand. Actually, I just tried to trick the camera into focusing better. But that's another great one. So this is the fattest one of all the cuttings I got. And you can see that the roots are not as huge as some of the others. Um, this is one of the slowest growers, but the root development was still there and ready to transplant. And just take a look. Like most of them have some pretty decent root growth. So that one's smaller, but roots are there for sure. What comes next? What comes next? Here it is. A nice green sprout. A lot of green, but not a whole lot of roots. I think I'm going to put that one back in another moment. Definitely some good roots there, ready to be transplanted, and so on. And what I can tell you is that almost all of the cuttings had decent root growth. And then for those that didn't, I just had to put them in a couple more days and then they sprouted. I just want to show you a few more gratuitous root scenes. Make sure your kids aren't in the room, but there we go. Look at those roots. Whoa, monsters, monsters. Now watch me put it off camera and then realize it. And we're like, okay, I'm going to move it slightly on camera. There we go. Boom. But then there's another one. I thought about editing it out there. Did you see that was my editing finger? This one has smaller roots, but those are still good to go. And then still one more. One more. Look at those. Look at those. All right, here we go. Those are all the roots. Fantastic. Now that the gratuitous root shots are out of the way, I just want to show you what to expect in terms of the green leafy growth. You see that it's pale, sickly, white, brown, black even. So that's clearly wasted energy with this methodology. The fact that it's sprouting the top growth with no green light or with no light and no photosynthesis is a little bit sketchy. So that stuff looks kind of gross and it ends up, sometimes it hardens off and greens up. Sometimes it dies back. Sometimes it gets dried out and crispy. But that's what to expect in terms of the top growth after you saw how exciting the root growth really was with this methodology. So my main intention here was to just show you the methodology for rooting these cuttings, but I just want to show you a little bit of the aftercare. So it's just spraying on some regular tap water. And again, I have well water, so you may want to use like bottled water for yours. But my whole goal here was to just try to get the vermiculite off because the vermiculite at this point was coating it. And that's something I think I'm going to note for future tests here is that like the vermiculite, it got everywhere. And I have to think at some point it's getting in the way. But so I sprayed it down, as you can see, very thoroughly. And then I took another one of those gallon Ziploc bags. Sorry, not Ziploc. Ziploc is a trademark of the Ziploc company. I'm not affiliated with them. It's also a great value bag. But the point here, ooh, what's going on there? That was exciting, huh? Rubber band ball. What I want to do is just seal in some of the humidity. So I took a rubber band, took the Ziploc bag, excuse me, the generic equivalent of a gallon freezer bag. I used the rubber band to hold it tight. Whoop, I didn't do that right. I just wanted to get my hand in there. Yep. And then now it's ready, of course. And I'm going to use the rubber band to, first I'm going to zip it up. There we go. Use the zipper, wrap it around. And any minute now the rubber band's going to come back. If I can find it, there it goes. I found it. Rubber band now goes around ever so slowly. And voila, we have ourselves a mini greenhouse. And what I realized is that the cutting was slouching over. I pulled it up there and I'm going to put it aside. And now I'm going to mass produce a bunch of cuttings. So that's why I put it to the side. So that was it. So I put some sort of a tent over them and I did vent it. So you can't really see it here, but I did cut the corners of those plastic bags so the corners were open. I put a plastic dome on that one. Oh, no, let's zoom in here on that bag. Look at that bag. And you can see, right? So it's kind of pale, sickly looking green, green and white, like yellowy. And there are holes. There aren't a whole lot of holes. I did put more holes on it right after I shot this video, but that is a vented plastic container. There's an old Dr. Pepper container there, and I'm zooming in again on my plastic bags with a hole in it. Look, 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 look. See, my finger wouldn't be able to fit in there if there wasn't a hole. And that's how I treated them. And then, all right, let's fast forward a few days. This is a Ronde de Bordeaux, and it's the best example that I have. This thing looks amazing. It has two great leaves at the top. It has a new shoot coming out just above the soil, and you can see the apical bud is still like glimmering and it's shining from the vermiculite. So that is the one side effect that I think is still slightly sketchy. In the foreground there, you see on the left-hand side this little like worm-looking appendage. On the right-hand side, you saw like a burned out kind of apical bud. But there, I mean, that's what it looks like a couple days outside of the bag. So this had already hardened off somewhat. You see it is starting to become a little bit more green. It's looking tougher. It looks a little bit like a gross worm from the movie Dune or something like that. And again, there's damage there, right? That's not perfect, but it is growing. And the other ones that are older than that one, and by older I mean had emerged slightly sooner. They're all looking fine, but that's a good example of what one looks like a couple days after hardening off slightly in a bag with some slits cut into it. Now let's quickly pan around and see some of the other buds so you know what you're getting into with this methodology. So as we zoom out and see some of the cuttings in the foreground, you see that one has a browner looking bud, although that one looks pretty darn healthy. So that's what some of them look like. Now we're going to switch to the cutting on the right as it comes into focus. Focus, or maybe it'll never. There it is. And you can see there's like a tiny green bud at the top, again with some damage up there. You see that some of that was damaged. But as we scroll down, we see that one got a little bit crispy. So that one dried out. So that one didn't acclimate well enough in the bag. It probably rushed it along too much. And then you see a pretty decent looking green stem coming out there with some of the leaves wilted. Again, not perfect. This one you have like a branch that was starting to grow. The branch looks like it browned and died, but now there's vigorous green growth coming off the side of it. That's a Smith cutting, as you can tell from the label. Let's keep going, keep going. Oh man, look at the bark on that. Isn't that beautiful? So that's a thick one that had great roots, but no green growth. This is another one that was really thick. It was the last one to sprout roots, and there's tiny green growth there. And let's take a look at a few more. So you can see smaller growth, but healthier looking green growth there. Again, with some whacked out looking buds. So clearly some of them shut out early on and then needed to be replaced. But look at that fuzzy green growth. I'm excited about that. Another green branch. You see there's a green branch emerging, focus, emerging there from the soil and some more green growth. We have another Ronde de Bordeaux with healthy green color, green coming out everywhere nearly, with a really healthy root structure. So that's pretty typical for what you can expect. All right, this is over here. This is an LSU purple. And so this is kind of an intermediate stage of brown, of greening up after being brown. That's another crispy critter up there on the top. Some more crispy leaves, but with some new green budding growth. And so that's what it looks like.
So let's talk conclusions. After 3 to 4 weeks, I had nearly every single cutting had grown roots and top growth as well. And so the top growth needed to be nurtured along a little bit. I was still feeling my way through the technique there, but essentially I was trying to harden off this soft, almost non-photosynthetic tissue to help it become green and vibrant, I guess. So that's sort of the drawback here, but everything rooted super quickly. But I would consider this a huge success. I tried several different varieties. I tried Celeste, LSU Purple, Smith, Long de Out, Ronde de Bordeaux, Violet de Bordeaux, Tacoma Violet. I'm sure I'm missing a couple, but all those went into bags in the exact same methodology, and they came out plus or minus a few days to like a week apart, and they most of them had really substantial root growth. Some had at least decent root growth, and they were ready to be repotted and transplanted up. So just wanted to share that experiment with you. It was relatively foolproof, and it took up almost no space. Because I was able to share the same grow bag with so many different cuts, it made things really, really easy. I just put as many as I could stuff into a 1 gallon zipper bag filled with vermiculite that was moist but wouldn't drain out water, and then let it go on a heating mat for about a month, and voila, I had instant fig trees. So pretty darn cool. I hope you enjoyed this experiment. I do think it's somewhat different from the other videos that I've seen online, and special thanks to the Etsy seller who had suggested a similar methodology that I tweaked a little bit, and I'm going to leave a link to their Etsy store on this description, because really I got the beginnings of that suggestion from them, and then evolved and iterated from there. But so that's the scoop, and I hope you really liked this video. If you did, please give it a thumbs up and consider subscribing to the channel so you can be alerted when there are new videos that come out. And thanks so much for being there, and leave a comment below and let me know what you think or if you have any questions. All right, that's all for now. Thanks.